You think your failure is yours alone. You blame your weakness, your lack of will, your fate. But what if I told you, the real rot is not within, but around you? This video will reveal the 7 signs that the people around you, friends, lovers, even family, are not building you, but destroying you, strategically, irreversibly. And by the end of this, you will never look at your circle the same again. A prince need not be loved. He need only avoid being hated. But what of the common man, surrounded not by princes but by pretenders, flatterers, and masked enemies? I am Niccolò Machiavelli, and today I reveal to you a silent war most never see, when those closest to you are the ones slowly dismantling your power, poisoning your soul, and smiling while they do it. A man does not fall by the blade of a stranger, he falls when the applause of his allies fades, and the silence grows heavier than any insult. Let me ask you, when you succeed, when you rise even slightly above the rest, do the people around you cheer truly? Or do they clap with hands half raised and eyes full of quiet calculation? That silence you hear, that awkward pause, that sudden shift of topic when you speak of progress, is not random. It is a signal, a silent rebellion, a form of slow, invisible warfare. You must understand this. True support is not quiet. It is loud, it is proud, it is constant. But counterfeit loyalty, that is performed. It is choreographed like a stage play. They give you enough praise to avoid suspicion, yet never enough to fuel your fire. They smile with their lips, not their eyes. And when you look away, they sigh, they scoff, they plan. A dangerous man is not always armed. Sometimes, he is simply passive in your moment of glory. You expected cheers, but received delay. You waited for encouragement, but received indifference. That indifference is not neutral. It is corrosive. It eats at your spirit slowly while you continue to mistake it for normalcy. They tell you, you're doing well, but their voice cracks. Their enthusiasm seems measured, restrained, as if each word of encouragement costs them a drop of pride. They do not criticize, no. That would reveal too much. Instead, they play the more delicate game, starve you of genuine validation, while appearing to support you. This way, they can remain close enough to observe your rise and quietly wait for your stumble. Look closely. When you fail, are they really devastated? Or do they offer you comfort a little too quickly? As if they were already prepared for your downfall. As if it didn't surprise them, but confirmed something they secretly believed. That you were never meant to rise above them. This is the hallmark of the slow destroyer. They never strike, they suffocate. Not with hands around your throat, but with withdrawal of energy. They drain the room when you speak. They hesitate to share your victories. They withhold their full belief in you. Not because they doubt you, because they fear you might one day outgrow them. And when you do, their place in your life becomes uncertain, threatened. In courts, I have seen men executed for less obvious betrayals. A prince cannot afford even faint hesitation in the voices of his advisors. Yet you keep these silent traitors in your circle because you confuse politeness with loyalty. But loyalty without enthusiasm is nothing but proximity without protection. They do not want your failure, but they do not want your dominance either. They prefer you struggling. Not collapsing, no. Struggling, just enough to keep you reachable, humble, dependent. This is the sweet spot for them, where they can still advise you, influence you, perhaps even feel superior, without openly opposing you. And so, their silence during your wins becomes deafening. Their delayed response, more violent than any verbal betrayal, because in that delay is hidden their real emotion, resentment. Not for who you are, but for who you might become. The most dangerous laughter is not the loud, mocking kind heard from enemies across the battlefield. It is the soft, restrained chuckle that escapes the lips of those seated beside you at the table. The kind that disguises itself as concern, as jest, as affection, yet its purpose is to wound your ambition while pretending to nourish it. When you speak of your vision, of rising above your present station, of building something vast, powerful, and extraordinary, watch closely. Do they lean in, eyes wide, minds open? Or do they smirk? Do they shift uncomfortably? Do they let out that low, dry laugh and say, "That's a big dream"? Or, "Be careful not to get ahead of yourself"? That laugh, that casual, almost forgettable reaction, is never innocent. It is a dagger covered in honey. For the man who laughs at your dreams believes one of two things. Either he thinks you are too small to achieve them, or he secretly fears that you just might. This laughter is strategic. It does not seek to confront, it seeks to plant doubt. Like a gardener sowing seeds of hesitation, they want your dream to rot from the inside. Not with fire, but with subtlety. They want you to begin doubting, to tame your ambition, to shrink your goals. Because the moment you adjust your vision to make it more realistic, they win. In Florence, I observed men who could have been powerful, who could have carved their name into history. But they listened to the laughter. They allowed their aspirations to be mocked out of existence. Not with swords, but with whispers. They were told to stay grounded, stay safe, stay humble. And in the end, they stayed forgotten. And you too have likely heard it. Not everyone gets to succeed. That field is already full. You need to be practical. Such advice comes dressed in the robes of wisdom, but it is merely cowardice in disguise. They do not speak these words for your benefit. They speak them to protect their own comfort. Because your dream, your rise, your hunger, it reminds them of what they've surrendered. It threatens the quiet resignation they've cloaked in routine. Your ambition confronts their stagnation. And so, they must laugh at it, not to hurt you directly, but to defend themselves from the shame your fire ignites in them. They will call it love. They will say, "I just don't want you to be disappointed." But disappointment is the price of glory. Every prince must risk disgrace if he is to seize the crown. The ones who try to shield you from that risk are not protecting you. They are insulating themselves from the discomfort of watching you attempt what they were too afraid to. This soft laughter, this constant belittling master's advice, this routine dismissal of your goals, it is a slow poison. One that enters through your ears, travels to your mind, and anchors itself in your heart. And over time, you begin to laugh too, at yourself, at your own dreams. You begin to echo their doubts, wear their fear, live their limits, thinking they are your own. In every kingdom, there are two kinds of enemies. The ones who storm your gates with swords drawn, and the ones who live within the castle walls, wearing smiles and offering wine. It is the second that concerns us now, for they do not attack your ambition directly. They delay it. They do not say, "Do not rise." They simply keep you busy with everything that is beneath you. The cleverest sabotage does not look like sabotage at all. It appears as friendship, concern, even helpfulness. These people, your so-called supporters, speak in the language of loyalty, but act in the interests of inertia. They are not content with their own mediocrity. They must make sure you remain entangled in it as well. They suggest you slow down, that you rest, that you're doing too much. Why not enjoy life a little? They say. What's the rush? They ask. But what they mean is, don't rise too fast. I am not ready to watch you leave me behind. They want you trapped in the same patterns, the same comforts, the same small world they've accepted as enough. You speak of building an empire. They speak of taking a break. You talk about chasing legacy. They hand you distractions wrapped in affection. I have seen this happen in courts, in families, among soldiers and kings. A young man burns with ambition, and those closest to him become artisans of delay. They invite him to celebrations, to indulge in pleasures, to engage in endless, fruitless conversation. And while he laughs, they chip away at the edge of his hunger, not by force, but by convenience. And when you try to break away, when you decide to become serious, disciplined, relentless, they suddenly become distant, offended even. You've changed, they whisper. But the truth is you've only stopped being manageable, because the ambitious man is always inconvenient to the unambitious. He is a mirror they cannot bear to look into. They will act as if they care about your success, but they always suggest things that cost you time. Time, that most precious of currencies for the man who wants to rise. Let's go out. Just one night? You worry too much. It's okay to relax. 1,000 small invitations to slow down, but the ambition you delay today becomes the regret you carry tomorrow. Worse still, they offer you opportunities that feel important but take you nowhere. Projects that sound grand, yet are cleverly designed to distract you. They know that a man chasing false purpose feels busy, but is going nowhere. It is not enough to be active. A horse running in circles still ends up where it began. And so do you, if the people around you keep you constantly in motion, but never in progress. These saboteurs are not fools. They are threatened, not by what you've done, but by what you might do. Your drive terrifies them. Because if you succeed, you prove that excuses are lies. That they too could have tried, but didn't. And that truth burns more than failure ever could. So they gently, quietly, persistently pull you away from the fire you were born to walk through. There is a kind of destruction more dangerous than the sword, more permanent than exile. It does not leave scars on the body. It leaves fractures in the soul. It is the slow erosion of your power and the theft of your very identity, and the most treacherous part of it all. It is done by those you let closest to you. You think betrayal comes from loud rebellion or open opposition. No, the most effective betrayal is quiet. It is intimate. It begins not with defiance, but with influence, with suggestion, with small compromises. One day, you speak with fire, you walk with force, you command a room with your voice alone, and then slowly, ever so slowly, that power weakens. Not because you've changed, but because those around you have reshaped you. They've convinced you to soften your tone, to second, guess your instincts, to consider how they might feel before you make your next move. They do not attack your will, they reshape it, subtly, consistently, until the lion forgets his roar. These people are craftsmen of control. They don't strip your power, they borrow it. Piece by piece, you begin to notice it when you ask for permission to act on your own ideas. When you hesitate before speaking, wondering how they'll perceive your confidence. When you water down your truth, so they won't feel offended by your strength. What was once your voice becomes an echo of theirs. They make you dependent, not by force, but by emotional currency. You begin to crave their approval. Their opinion becomes the lens through which you see yourself. You hand them the crown of your inner authority, hoping they will help you wear it better. But they don't. They put it on themselves. I have seen it in men who once ruled their own minds, who once dared to lead, to risk, to dominate. But over time, the wrong company made them hesitant, timid less. They were told to be more sensitive, more agreeable, more diplomatic. And so they adjusted, not realizing that each adjustment was a small execution of their former self. They disguise this process as emotional intelligence, as humility, as personal growth. But be warned, when you grow only in ways that make others comfortable, you are not evolving. You are being tamed. What begins as self-reflection ends in self-erasure. You start avoiding conflict, not because you believe in peace, but because you fear disapproval. You suppress your ideas to maintain harmony. You dim your light because it's casting too many shadows. Until eventually, you no longer recognize yourself. You look in the mirror and see a man who speaks softly, who walks carefully, who thinks cautiously. A man who was once feared, now liked. Once respected, now accepted. Once powerful, now polite. And the ones who did this to you, they'll applaud your transformation. They'll tell you, you've matured. You've become easier to be around. You've really grown. But they will never say the truth, that they're no longer afraid of you. That you've been disarmed, neutered, disassembled, piece by piece, until your strength became compatibility and your clarity became confusion. You walk among them. You dine with them. You laugh beside them, but you do not see them, not for what they are. Because destruction does not always come with blood. Sometimes, it comes with comfort, with warmth, with years of quiet, careful influence. One does not wake up ruined. One is ruined slowly. by soft hands, familiar voices, and harmless intentions. The enemy who strikes you is easy to confront, but the enemy who reshapes you, who delays your rise, who smiles as they drain your strength, that enemy is far more lethal. A man loses his kingdom not always through war, but through blindness, through the refusal to examine his circle, through the tragic assumption that proximity equals loyalty and that love cannot also carry the weight of sabotage. So look around you, not with emotion, but with strategy. Who cheers only when you're weak? Who doubts you only when you begin to rise? Who laughs too often at your dreams and grows too silent when you succeed? And most importantly, who have you allowed to write the script of your life while you handed them the pen, thinking they were simply helping? You cannot rise until you cut the anchors. You cannot lead until you stop being led. And you will never become powerful until you learn to separate those who protect your soul from those who quietly feed on it. Now choose, before they choose for you.